So much is currently unfolding in my life, and I'm eager to gather some insights from fellow Redditors. I'm a 31-year-old woman with a rather peculiar relationship with my sister Becky, who is 28, not her real name, of course. Becca was born prematurely and spent several weeks in the ICU before coming home. This early experience led our parents to spoil her mercilessly. Becky grew up with everything handed to her on a silver platter, while my younger brother Sam, who is 25, and I had to accept whatever our parents deemed best for us. We often heard variations of, "You're the older sister. You need to be responsible for your poor sister. Don't be a selfish brat. You need to learn to share things with your siblings." Becky consistently received whatever she desired almost instantly, whether it was her birthday parties or when we had to step aside at our own birthday celebrations so she could blow out the candles on our cakes. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I could write a whole novel about the favoritism we experienced at the hands of our parents. Strangely, I had accepted this treatment as normal and believed that Becky deserved all the nice things. However, everything changed when I was 20 and caught her in the act with my then-boyfriend on my bed. There was a lot of screaming and yelling from both sides, and I couldn't believe my baby sister had betrayed me in this manner. In the midst of the argument, Becky claimed to have a panic attack, which led my parents to swoop in and take her side, chastising me for not being mature and understanding about my poor sister's delicate state. It was at that moment that I realized my parents would always prioritize Becky above everything else. The following week, I moved out and stayed with my childhood friend, now fiancé, David, who is also 31. I tried to reach out to my parents for reconciliation after moving out, but it resulted in a heated argument. They refused to see my perspective and even denied that Becky had faked her attack. I thought this betrayal was the worst, but I was soon proven wrong. Becky started visiting my part-time job as a cashier, flaunting her relationship with my ex and deliberately making out with him in front of me. She paid no attention to the stink eyes and icy glares directed at them. She even went so far as to spread rumors that I had slept with TAs and lecturers for better grades, although my friends quickly dispelled these lies. All of these events left me increasingly depressed. I wouldn't have made it through college if it weren't for David and my friends, whom I consider myself undeserving of. 2 years ago, my father's sudden death prompted me to reach out to my mother, with whom I had been estranged since the incident with Becky. My mother seemed apologetic about the entire affair, and I felt confident enough to let her back into my life. During our reconciliation, I made it clear that Becky was not to be mentioned in my presence, nor was she to be a part of my life. My mother appeared to accept this. For the past year, I've been diligently planning my wedding, set to take place next month. However, last week, my mother invited me to her home under the guise of discussing wedding arrangements. When I arrived, I was greeted not only by my mother, but also by my aunts. The conversation about wedding arrangements initially started on a positive note, but took an unexpected turn towards my sister's attendance at the wedding. Needless to say, I firmly refused to invite her. Right on cue, my mother's tears began to flow, pleading with me in desperation. I felt frustrated by her attempt to corner me, especially with the support of my aunts. I walked away from the chaotic scene, my mother chasing after me, shouting something about family values. Feeling exasperated, I discussed the entire situation with David, my brother, my in-laws, and my best friend. Going over all the details only reinforced the fact that my mother would always prioritize Becky, disregarding my emotions and feelings. Finally, yesterday, I decided to make one last call to my mother to inform her that her invitation had been revoked. Shortly after the call, my phone started ringing incessantly. Relatives called to label me as ungrateful and childish, questioning my actions. To those who inquired about my relationship with my brother, he had remained in touch with me throughout and distanced himself from our parents once he turned 18, the fallout with my sister being the last straw. Now, onto the actual update. As many of you speculated, my mother had twisted the story to her advantage, painting it as a fight over a guy that led to me storming out of the house. These lies crumbled when one of my aunts called my brother, criticizing him for supporting me. He set the record straight by narrating the entire ordeal, leaving a pin-drop silence on the other end. Moreover, he shared screenshots of some message exchanges between him and Becky during their fallout, clarifying the situation. My mother faced severe backlash from multiple family members for her deceit, and most of them are now on my side. Despite this, she still has a few supporters, but they have been blocked from communicating with my brother and me. What should have been a joyous time in my life has turned into a chaotic spectacle. I can only hope that this will be the final update. Interestingly, today took an unexpected turn when I spotted my mother's car near my home. As I approached, my best friend decided to talk to her and convince her to stay away from me. As I sat hidden in my car, away from my mother's sight, my best friend approached her. It felt like an eternity, but after about 45 minutes, she messaged me that it was safe to come inside. Once settled in the house, my friend recounted her conversation with my mother. It appeared that my sister had faced some difficult situations in college due to her arrogant demeanor. The most significant of these was my ex cheating on her with another girl, leaving her heartbroken and with an STD. The news of her contracting the STD quickly spread among her friends and acquaintances, leading to resentment and hostility from many. Feeling alienated, Becky transferred to a new college far from home. She sought counseling there, which wasn't an option before, given my parents' resistance to the idea. According to my mother, Becky had cut off contact with her after our father's death. She seemed remorseful for her past actions. When the topic of my marriage arose, my mother devised a plan to invite her to force a reconciliation. However, my refusal to invite her thwarted these plans, preventing her favorite child from reuniting with her. My friend made it clear that the decision of who to invite was entirely mine and firmly warned my mother that any attempt to approach me would result in exposure on social media for the world to witness. I find myself torn about the entire situation. While I am certain that I don't want either of them at my wedding, I can't help but feel some sympathy for my sister, considering the challenges she faced. Yet, these emotions are overshadowed by the memories of her deliberate attempts to hurt me. I once adored her as my sweet little sister, hoping she would change. However, the day I learned about the rumors she spread, I was utterly crushed and inconsolable. It was David who encouraged me to seek counseling and later therapy. Without his and my friends' unwavering support, I might have been an emotional wreck. I sincerely hope that Becky can work on her issues with her therapist and undergo a transformation, becoming a better person in the process, perhaps in the future. I am open to the possibility of reconciling with my sister, but at this moment, I am far from ready to meet her. As many of you suggested, we had a meeting scheduled with the vendors and the wedding planner. We've taken steps to ensure security during the wedding and the reception. You've made the right decision by not giving in to your mother's demands. She clearly attempted to manipulate the situation in her favor, putting you in a difficult spot in front of your aunts. It might be helpful to check out the subreddit r/raised_narcissists. To address another issue, I really enjoy wearing scarves in my hair. However, my boyfriend isn't the type to give gifts. It was surprising when he unexpectedly showed up at my place with a scarf. Although it had some stains, it was beautiful. I washed it, and it quickly became my favorite. A few days later, when I went to his parents' place to discuss our wedding, his sister became fixated on the scarf. Suddenly, she approached me and tried to pull it off, accusing me of stealing it from her. I was shocked and confused, explaining that my boyfriend had given it to me, but she wouldn't listen, calling me a liar and even mentioning old nail polish stains on it that she had dropped. I took off the scarf, threw it at her, and left before my boyfriend joined us. When he later asked where I was, I told him I had gone home. When he returned, we had a major argument. In the original post, I didn't provide some necessary information. He confessed that the scarf had belonged to his mom, who had given it to his sister years ago. She hadn't even worn it, and he found it in the storeroom, thinking of giving it to me instead of it going to waste. Now, I think it's important for your boyfriend to understand that if he wants to give you a gift, he should buy it rather than taking something without permission. Technically, you unknowingly received stolen property due to his actions. While the scarf might not hold significant monetary value, the situation left you feeling utterly humiliated. This happened to me, but with a necklace. X gave me a lovely necklace, and I wore it. Some friends saw it and said it looked like the one she had. We checked, and it turned out to be hers. The catch on the chain was slightly loose, just as she described. After examining it further, there was no doubt it was her necklace. The person who had given it to me had borrowed it from her a week prior, and he had then given it to me. We were both incredibly angry. He became an ex, and thankfully, she got her property back. Your sister-in-law could have discussed this with you before accusing you outright. Most people don't wear stolen items in front of their owners, and there could have been another explanation, especially if you hadn't been in her room or had no access to her belongings. Her reaction was over the top, and she was clearly angry. However, your soon-to-be ex-boyfriend put you both in a terrible situation. He stole from her, gave it to you, and let you walk around wearing the scarf without ever mentioning where he got it. That's messed up. He's either oblivious to how bad it looks, or he's calculating. You should seriously reconsider being with someone like that. You deserve better than a stolen, stained scarf. I'm a 16-year-old male with an older sister who is 20. She moved out for university 2 years ago, and our relationship was fine until about a month ago when she suddenly went no contact with us. Some background information is important here. Her relationship with our parents has always been messy, with frequent arguments and drama. She saw me as someone she could trust and shared things about our parents with me. Our parents insisted on the importance of education and made it clear that dropping out or getting low marks was a shame on them. They would frequently argue with each other and involve me in their arguments, not hesitating to bring up each other's past. They argued about everything from cheating to paying for her tuition and rent, among other things. Returning to the main topic, her 20th birthday was approaching, and we wanted to pay her a surprise visit. The problem was that we didn't know her address. She had moved to a new apartment, which sparked a major argument between my mom and dad. My mom blamed my dad for not taking her and dropping her off when she moved. This argument initiated everything. In summary, we tried to contact her through calls and emails, but my dad ended up going to the police to investigate, which led to finding out that she had dropped out and was in hiding. She had told me more about it, as she trusted me more than our parents. This is where I might have made a mistake. Later, while my parents and I were in the living room, they began arguing, and one of the main points was the fact that my sister had left us without notice. They were discussing possible reasons for her actions at this point. I was absolutely furious with my parents for their delusional behavior, so I blurted out something along the lines of, "Yeah, you guys scared her. You pressured her and created damn scenarios in her head. No wonder she doesn't like you. Who's your next target, me?" The next thing I knew, I was in a heated argument with my parents. They kept telling me to mind my own business and not interfere in other people's lives. It was like my sister's situation all over again. I couldn't take it anymore, so I told them to go to hell, stormed up to my room, and adopted the classic rebellious teenage demeanor. My 39-year-old uncle found out about the situation, and I explained everything to him. He supported me, further infuriating my parents. They accused me of ruining them, as if they couldn't care less, and refused to reflect on their own actions that led to this mess. Am I the one at fault here? Here's some unsolicited advice that might help, although it may not directly apply to your situation. I grew up in a similar environment. My parents would drunkenly tear each other apart almost every night. Sometimes I'd intervene to stop them. Other times I'd shout from the stairs, but nothing worked. At 18, before leaving for university, I confronted my dad and asked how long he thought they'd last. He didn't have an answer. What I didn't realize then was the deep psychological damage witnessing this had caused me. Faced with intimacy, I'd shut down entirely. Looking back, it was a flight or fight response. While I matured emotionally in some ways, my growth was stunted, especially in relationships. I never received therapy, and I regret not considering it. I managed to work through it on my own, but therapy would have been incredibly helpful. If possible, talking to someone about your experiences could be beneficial. Good luck. Well, look at the consequences of their actions. I'm sorry, OP, I'm not sure of a solution. Technically, you're stuck with them for a bit longer, depending on your situation. Perhaps you can consider living with your uncle if that's an option. I don't have specific advice for your situation, but I don't blame you for speaking your mind and telling them the truth.